we talk with Stacey. Stacey's calling us from Los Angeles, California, watches the program on Facebook, and we're glad. Hi, Stacey. Welcome.
Hey, how are you guys? You know, it's so funny that you guys have helped me through so much over the years, Steve and Julie and Larry. You guys have been there, and I really appreciate it. And it's gotten me to the point that I've ministered to a lot of people now, and I actually have you on a watch party right now because we're dealing with narcissists. And yesterday's program was the perfect time to talk to Dr. Amen. He would have been the perfect person. But, you know, Steve, you inputted a lot into my life dealing with the person that I was dealing with. So I want to have a question for you.
Okay.
And I'm just going to let you answer it. I don't want to get into too much because I don't want it to be biased. I just wanted to come straight from you. But through our chat, there's a lot of people dealing with a lot of hurts. And I would like for you to briefly explain what a narcissist is, but more importantly, can they change?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Can they change their way?
Yeah, great. So what's a narcissist and can they change? And I'll just start and then we'll go to Alice and then to Becky. But and by the way, I'll send you this book, Understanding and Loving a Person Who Has Narcissism. The first of all, we have to start with a narcissist is a person that has a very deep wound. It can come from many sources. It could be a traumatic thing that would be obvious, like being physically abused or rejected or something like that. That wound also could be injury like 1,000 paper cuts. You know, it's not like one big thing, but a lot of little things together. And so in absence of healing from that wound or being supported in that healing, there is compensation. And that compensation is both comforting and it's survival. And in the process of comforting yourself, trying to make yourself feel good about yourself, and surviving in a world with this deep, deep wound of inadequacy and insufficiency and pain, you lose sight of yourself. You become blind to what you do, and you really are unaware of how people feel about themselves or within themselves and how they feel about you. So you think you're doing fine. You think you're doing what you're entitled to do because it feels good or it's part of this survival strategy that you've developed. It's a defective strategy. And you're unaware, I could have done something different, and that would have been better for me, better for everybody else, but you just don't know. So can a narcissist change? Absolutely, but they have to be willing to listen to some things that they can't connect with. They have to be willing for a professional to say, here's who you are, here's what you're doing, and here's why. If they're not willing to hear, because it's such a threat, or they may feel like they're going to fall apart, lose everything, collapse, then there wouldn't be any hope. But when that willingness is there, there is great hope. Alice, you take it from there.
I think you said it really well, Steve. So I would add other words, that it's a defense system that covers up that underlying pain and insecurity. Yeah. But there tends to be a lot of denial about what's underneath the defense system, and even a blindness or an ignorance to this whole system to protect themselves. It's like the barbs of a porcupine to keep people at arm's length, to protect that soft underbelly. But it's just one form of brokenness, that we all bring our different forms of brokenness. Most of us have a little bit of narcissism where we're blind. We don't want to see. We don't want to admit to our shortcomings. And I would say part of the healing process is a lot of love. And usually we narcissists have to suffer some of the consequences of our behavior. We've got to feel some loss usually before we'll wake up and change.
And so I want to add, Can I add one thing before you go, Stacey, is that the opposite, the person who's in a relationship with someone who has narcissism or is a narcissist has to be careful that the label doesn't impede the process of healing.
Good point.
So a lot of times we, especially in this day and age where we know so much, right? We will label somebody with that tag and then just throw our arms up and say, can't do anything with this person, and so we're done. And I think that's a danger in relationships. But go ahead, Stacey, what were you going to say?
But I think I have another challenge, and real quickly. There's a lot of chat out there. There's a lot of people chatting about this, but they're all beating up these individuals, and it's just negative. And, I put together NAM Ministries to help people heal more in a positive way, maybe in a Christ-like way, like you guys helped me through this. But through their hurts, they can't hear the love. I'm talking about the victim, not the narcissist, the victim of narcissism. It's hard for them to hear it, and it almost becomes a battle because I can't get them past the hurts. And I know they need to work through their hurts. I get that, but there has to come a point in time that you have to accept who they are to begin the healing process and look and move toward forgiveness at the end. And to hear me say eventually it has to be forgiveness to some of these victims, it's like taboo. They get angry, and I can't get them past that hurt. How do I get them past the hurt?
Well, one of the things that you heard me do is I started with the source, not the symptoms that are so offensive. And so what we would try to do is get them to become acquainted with where did all of this come from. The more they understand whatever it was that led to all this, the more likely, not guaranteed, but the more likely that they would be able to move toward forgiveness. And we got to remember that, the Bible says that we need to get rid of all bitterness and resentment, not because we want to give a free gift to somebody, but because the gift is to ourselves. We get off track. We can't serve God. We can't be the person God's called us to be if we're full of resentment and bitterness. And so it's a call to a spiritual dimension of forgiveness that they have to move into if they find it impossible or extremely difficult. But it is the answer. They have to forgive. But first, I think the forgiveness is made easier by understanding where in the world did all of this come from. It isn't just out of clear blue. This person decides to be blind and to be unaware and so uncaring and obnoxious, and it's all about me, and everybody else is a little less special than me.
Well, and the whole thing about forgiveness is that it doesn't matter what the label is that we're talking about. Our ability to move through forgiveness is about our ability to recover and to continue to move towards serenity, towards peace. And I know what you're saying, Stacey, is that you're talking to folks that are really wounded and that are probably still in this relationship with the person who has this label, and they can't see a way out of it. And they're still focused on the other person. If the other person would be different, then I could feel better. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the label is. That doesn't work.
And we have to separate the forgiveness from the reconciliation, because people don't feel safe to forgive. But if they can accept that forgiveness allows them to receive the blessing and grace God has for them. I like to lead folks through a prayer of admitting to God, I don't even want to forgive, I can't forgive, but I do want to be obedient. So God, you do the work in me, I can't do myself. And I see movement and change after that prayer.
That's right. And I think that book you're going to send, Stacey, is going to help explain those tricky places in those relationships where narcissism is present.
So I'll send you Understanding and Loving a Person with Narcissism, but I also want to send this to you. I want to send you this new workbook on grief, because that one of the big steps toward forgiveness, not just understanding the other person,
Right.
but it's grieving what I've lost by being married to that other person. And so I have to accept my reality, and then I essentially can walk into the present and not have to feel this searing pain every day once I get involved with what I believe is one of the greatest gifts that God has given us, and it is the grieving process. Jesus was a man of sorrows and acquainted with the bitterest of grief. It's a gift. It's not something that is a sign of weakness when we grieve. It really does free us up. So I'll send you the grief workbook. Anybody else, you can order it at newlife.com, and also Understanding and Loving a Person with Narcissism. Lizzie,